Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. My name is Nick. In today's video, I want to talk about how long you can expect for a new Crested Gecko to be settled in and to be fully comfortable in their new home and with you. So let's get right into it. Alright guys, so let's just address, day one, you either receive your gecko in the mail or you buy it from a show or you buy it from your local pet store, whatever you choose to buy it from. Once you get it home, try not to handle it very much, right? So get it home and then put it in the setup, which the setup should have actually been the first thing I addressed, because what you're gonna wanna do is the first thing that you should do is you should research, right? So you should look up how long does a Crested Gecko live? Where do they come from? What do they eat? What are their temperatures? What's their humidity? And then what I think that you should do is you should probably join a Facebook group or something like that, or read some forums online. Try to actually talk to breeders or just experienced Crested Gecko keepers, because there's a lot of them out there. There's a lot of people who know a lot of good information. Because we all go through different experiences, so something that I may not have experienced yet, I don't know anything about. To where something someone else experienced, there's things too that I can talk about that I experienced that someone else had a totally different experience with, and that's fine. That is what it is. That's part of life. Everyone's gonna have different experiences. So the first thing that you should do is you should get your tank set up, and you should have the appropriately sized tank for whatever size Crested Gecko you're getting, and you should have the proper amount of foliage. And the one thing too that I think a lot of people forget to address, or they don't think that they need to address, is heating. You need to be very careful, and you need to make sure that your gecko is still getting up to the mid 70s during the day. 73 to 77, somewhere in that range is very optimal for them. And then at night, you really don't want it getting below 65. Now, once again, it's not to mention that you can't go higher, you can't go lower. We're strictly talking optimal temperature ranges, which if they're in captivity, I don't know why you wouldn't aim for optimal temperature ranges, but that's beyond me. But either way, that is what it is. That's what I would recommend doing, is making sure you have the proper heating as well. So when you get your gecko and you put him in his enclosure that you had already set up, because you're a great owner and a great researcher and you know everything about Crested Geckos now, the first thing to do is just, like I said, put him in there and just let him chill. You don't want to handle, and you don't want to do anything like that for probably, I mean, I usually recommend at least 5 days, 10 days preferably. 2 weeks would probably be even better. Now, I'm also gonna, I'm not gonna be a hypocrite. There have been times where I bought a new Crested Gecko, I bring it home and I handle it the next day. That's, that's human nature. That's my problem. So try to be better than me and don't do that, but that is something that I have done, I'm human. I wanted to handle my gecko that I just bought. As I've gone more and more in the hobby and I've bought Crested Geckos, even the most recent ones, I do let them settle in better than I did when I first got in, and I was like, ooh, let me handle right now. So if you're planning on getting your second gecko and you're like, oh no, I didn't do this with the first one, that's okay. That's, once again, that's part of life. So when you're feeding your Crested Gecko, I would highly recommend offering food that first day, first night. And don't anticipate them eating it. I know that of the geckos that we've sold and we've shipped out to people, and they have come back and said that we've had a decent ratio of geckos actually eating within the first couple days, which is it's a good feeling, because they're still my pets even though I sell them to somebody else. So I like to hear that they're eating. I haven't. Thankfully I haven't had anybody be like, hey, it's been 10 days and this gecko's not eating, I don't know what to do. Luckily that hasn't happened, and I'm very thankful for that. But I have noticed that most of our geckos are eating within the first 5 days, if not, some of them are eating on the first night, some of them are eating on the next night. And that's the other thing that I would say too, is make sure that if you offer food, don't take it out that next morning, leave it in till the next day, right? So every other day, offer fresh food. Some geckos like it more on the other day. They like it more when it's a little nastier, doesn't smell as good, things like that. So don't pull food too early. That's an issue that I've seen, is people are like, I offer fresh food every night, things like that. The one thing too, when it comes to food, I would highly encourage everybody to do is to make sure Mix your food to where it's almost the same consistency every single time, which for me here is 2 parts water to 1 part diet, which is what it says on the back of the Pangea bag, and that seems to work perfectly. And I don't know if it's necessarily a big deal that it's like, oh, it's 2 parts water, 1 part diet, this is the best it's going to be. I think it's the fact that I'm so consistent with it that my geckos know what they're getting into, they know what to expect, and I feel like it's easier for them to like eat and self-regulate. To whereas let's say the first time I fed them it was super chunky and they took a bite, okay? And the next time I did it was super watery and they were just drinking it. Well, obviously they got more nutrition from the big bite compared to the watery one where they were just drinking it. But that is going to be more difficult on them to... I guess it's actually probably more realistic to what it would probably be like in the wild, honestly. But once again, if they're in captivity, you know, optimal to me is same consistency, vary flavors. You know, so if which my geckos will eat every single flavor, and I might attribute some of that to the fact that no matter what flavor they're getting, they know what consistency they're getting into, and then they eat that. So that's something to, I mean, I have no scientific data on that. That's just all like, you know, that's just guessing. But it could play a factor. So switch your food out every other day. If your gecko doesn't eat the first night and it doesn't eat the next time you offer food, then the next time you offer food, I would maybe either try switching flavors or at least try mixing flavors. I think that could be a good stimulus for them to want to at least try it. And so that kind of segues to another topic, is how much should you be expecting them to eat, right? If they're at the very least, if you can see 1 lick print, I would relieve some of that anxiety that you feel, because they know where their food is and they were happy enough in their enclosure to come get it, right? So once they went out and they got that food and they licked it, you should take some, you know, solace in that, and you should be somewhat happy with that, because while no, they didn't lick their bowl clean or anything like that, they did eat, and that's very important, and that's really awesome to see. So even if you just see a couple lick marks, you're okay, because these guys really don't need to eat that much. What I would also kind of recommend doing is if you bring your gecko home, and a lot of beginners are going to go out and they're going to buy these big freaking, you know, 2-ounce deli cups, and they're going to fill the diet with that, and they're going to put it in there, and then they're going to say, oh, well, I can't even tell if they ate anything. And I think that's because it's an unrealistic expectation that, you know, the big gecko market pushes, in that, oh, you got to feed from these big deli cups, because here's the secret, guys. Big deli cups equals more food. More food equals you using more. You using more equals more demand at a sooner point, right? So if you keep feeding in 2-ounce cups and it's only eating this much, then you have to buy more diet before your gecko is even able to touch that diet, right? So make sure that you're feeding from a smaller cup. Water bottle caps work just fine. My big girl here, this is Jessie. She is 60 grams. She's 60 grams. I feed her from, it's not a water bottle cap, but it's actually, I mean, it's a Coca-Cola cap. So it's as round as a water bottle cap, but it's about double the size, you know, height-wise. So that's what she feeds out of. And that's what she's fed out of for probably about the past year. And we haven't had any issues with her losing weight. She's still 60 grams. She's maintaining perfectly. She'll lay eggs. She'll eat her whole bowl. If I notice that the bowl was eaten within the night, I'll fill it up a little bit the next day just to make sure that they got enough. But that's neither here nor there. Feed from smaller cups, guys. It'll make your life a lot easier, and especially early on, it'll make it so much easier, because you'll actually be able to see if they're eating or not. The big cups, it's impossible to tell. If your gecko still hasn't eaten after 3 to 4 attempts, so now we're talking 6 to 8 to 10 days, somewhere in that range, now you need to address your heating again, and just make sure that you are providing the proper temperatures. You could also address humidity at that rate. You know, what are you using as substrate? I see a lot of issues with people using paper towels and things like that instead of just using cocoa fiber and spag moss. Don't worry about your gecko eating a little bit of it. They can pass it. As long as your temperatures are correct, your crested gecko can pass coconut fiber. It's not a big deal. Should you hand feed them? No, I would not. Should you show them where their food is, you know, by kind of placing them near the food? You can do that. I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. I think that that's actually fine. It's not, as long as you're not hand feeding them, I think you're okay. And if they see the food and then they eat the food, then you did good, you know, so don't, and they're eating it on their own, which is the most important part. Now, last thing too is multiple ledges. Do you need multiple ledges? For the first week, I would probably do 2 or 3 food bowls, and I would put them low, medium, and high. All my crested geckos, they eat off the ground. You know, that's what they do in the wild. That's what they do here. Some crested geckos, they like the ledges, you know, and that's fine. You can do that if you'd like. But don't be scared to put the food on the ground as well. Try to put it middle and then try to put it high. And whichever one the gecko likes, guess what? It doesn't matter. As long as your gecko's eating, who cares? Like, who cares where the food is? Just let them eat. So place it low, place it medium, place it high. Whichever one that gecko eats from, maybe if it's 2 nights in a row, take the other 2 out and keep putting the food there. Make it simple. Don't overthink it and be like, oh, well, they're arboreal and they have to be high, which in the wild they're more semi-arboreal, for being honest anyway, and they eat from the ground. So there's a lot of things that are pushed for marketing reasons that aren't necessarily what geckos need. You know, they don't need ledges. And there's hundreds upon thousands of breeders out there that will tell you that as a matter of fact. So you really don't need to focus too much on that. Just take it slow, take it easy, use some of the points I talked about, and your gecko should relax within a week or so. That's gonna wrap up the video, guys. I hope I helped you out. I hope that, you know, I relieved some of your new owner anxieties with the crested geckos, and that now you feel confident in pursuing one, and you're gonna be a great owner. So with that said, guys, that's gonna wrap up the video, and until next time, stay safe and stay positive.